Probably, in conversations about the Middle Ages or even the 16th and 17th centuries with your friends, you may have heard the phrase that people back then were more foolish, universally religious, and believed in magic, not like us, the intelligent people of today. But their views on life were not uniformly homogeneous. Perhaps in our era of the internet and social media, we are actually much more unified than people of the past. Yet, in reality, we are quite similar to the people of the 16th century. Today I want to talk about the book which is the brightest example of the microhistory genre in the world. It attempts to reconstruct the life and origin of ideas of a simple miller who lived in the 16th century in northern Italy. The book is called The Cheese and the Worms, and the author is an Italian historian Carlo Ginzburg. In this episode there will be a bit about the book and some reflections on parallels between the present and the life of a person from the 16th century. The uniqueness of the book lies in the reconstruction of an ordinary person's life, a person who for centuries remained simple and unknown. No one today would know about this man, just as people outside his village didn't know about him in his time, if one day an Italian historian hadn't delved into the archives of the Inquisition. Author Carlo Ginzburg distinguishes between folk culture and the culture of enlightened political or religious elites. It's nearly impossible to access the folk culture of the 16th century, because common people, even if they could write, didn't have the opportunity to create content as people can today. One way to access the folk culture is through the archives of Inquisition interrogations. I was surprised when I read this, but yes, in Europe, there are preserved dozens or even hundreds of volumes detailing interrogations of suspects and witnesses in cases of heresy and more. We know about the hero of the book from statements about him, his lengthy interrogations, and interviews with people who knew him. It's a reconstruction of life through a legal case. There will be a lot of spoilers, but it won't affect the reading experience since it's non-fiction and the spoilers are presented by the author in the prologue. The hero is named Domenico Scandella or Menocchio. Menocchio was an Italian miller who lived in the mid-16th to the late 16th century. He was twice convicted of heresy, first imprisoned, and then executed after the second trial. Menocchio is not the most typical representative of common people, because at the very least he could read and write, a skill not many millers could boast of. Judging from Ginzburg's reconstruction, Menocchio read at least 11 books during his lifetime that influenced his worldview. His views are a mixture of personal observations, oral culture, and the books he read. As I read the book, Menocchio reminded me of people living today. He called the church a business and said that the church's inventions were aimed at making money for the clergy. Let me share a few of Menocchio's quotes. I believe that the laws and decrees of the church are all matters of business, and they, clergy, profit from it. Another quotation. I believe that when we are born, we are already baptized, because the Lord, who blessed all creation, baptized us, and the church baptism is just a human invention. Regarding confession, he said thus, you can go and confess to a tree, just like to a priest. Does this sound familiar? These are quite popular thoughts today. Menocchio's ideas originated from the influence of Reformation ideas on him. Is it inherent in human nature to doubt authorities while simultaneously not doubting other opposing authorities? His words also contain what can be called atheism. Menocchio stated that God is only air, water, and atmosphere. These are ideas that can be heard today as well. The ideas of the Reformation also influenced Menocchio's boldness, because before the first trial, he openly taught his worldview everywhere, even wanting to confront an inquisitor or someone from the political or religious elites to express everything he thought. Perhaps in this way change the structure of the surrounding world. So, if Menocchio knew that books and films would be written about him 400 years later, after his death, he would probably be satisfied. Between the first and the second trials, Menocchio was a bit more restrained, but still attempted at the first opportunity to explain to someone that God is just air and priests make everything up to make money. Ultimately, more than 10 years after the first trial, he fell into the hands of the Inquisition again. As for the title of the book, The Cheese and the Worms, it is a quote from Menocchio. During one of his trials, he said, "In my opinion, all was chaos. That is, earth, air, water, and fire were mixed together, and out of that bulk a mass formed, just as cheese is made out of milk, and worms appeared in it. And these were the angels. The most holy majesty decreed that these should be God and the angels, and among that number of angels there was also God, he too having been created out of that mass at the same time." Here we can see what can be called Menocchio's materialism. Scandella had witnessed many times how cheese is made from milk and how worms appear in the cheese. He transferred his own observations of everyday objects to thoughts about the creation of the world. This eventually leads to a complete misunderstanding by the Inquisition of Menocchio's thoughts. The educated inquisitors were searching for the roots of his views in ancient Greek philosophy or early Christian sects. Meanwhile, Menocchio's understanding was heavily influenced by the inaccessible oral culture of the common people and his observations of the surrounding objects. This significantly distorted the perception of the books Menocchio had read. When he conveyed ideas from the books to the inquisitors, he often distorted the ideas presented in the books. The distortion was shaped by the influence of oral culture. Here we can also observe the difference in the approach to reading between people accustomed to working with texts, roughly speaking academics, and those who read in a non-systematic manner. When a familiar priest of Menocchio appeared before the court, he quoted certain books verbatim, and when conveying certain ideas, he did not distort them at all. Regarding the books that shaped Menocchio's views, among them are three well known to the general public: Italian translation of the Bible, Italian translation of the Quran, and Boccaccio's Decameron. Also among them are the Travels of Mandeville. Menocchio incorporated all the books he read into his intricate worldview. He believed in the fantastic stories from Mandeville's travels, and from the Quran he took the idea that Jesus was the greatest prophet. Menocchio also referred to himself as a prophet and philosopher, because he believed that through his reflections he understood the structure of the world. While reading the book, I was surprised by the description of Menocchio's torture. During the second trial, the inquisitors decided to extract the names of Menocchio's allies. Since Menocchio did not reveal any names, they opted to torture him. Menocchio, an old, gray-haired man by then, first underwent a medical examination to ensure his health could withstand torture. Only after that, they began torturing him, tying his hands behind his back and lifting him from the behind upwards. After half an hour of torture, Menocchio named one aristocrat, only doing so to stop the torture, as he was not actually the founder of the heretical movement, but a simple miller who wanted to share his views with everyone around him. What I've shared here doesn't cover even a quarter of the interesting moments in the book. Menocchio's life is reconstructed as comprehensively as possible, covering all aspects of his views on life, world, religion, the divine, and the afterlife. The book, although academic, can be read like a detective novel and offers a captivating narrative. Regarding microhistory, it is an attempt not to perceive the context of an era as something singular influencing the views and actions of people of that era. Instead, it tries to find the multifaceted world of one person or a small group. Through that person, it aims to showcase the myriad layers of the studied era. For example, from Ginzburg's book, we learn not only about Menocchio, but also about the Reformation, Counter-Reformation, Inquisition, printing and distribution of books, peasant legends, the lives of millers, utopian ideas of the 16th century, and much more. In conclusion, I want to say that nowadays people think that their worldview is correct and they know everything. Doesn't that remind you of Menocchio? However, in Menocchio's case, with Ginzburg's help, we can understand what influenced his beliefs. But what influences ours? Like and subscribe to the channel. It will motivate me to create new videos. See you in the next episodes. Bye.